Okay, all to today's full council meeting, Kaipara District Council, 29th of May, 2024, here at Uruwai Takataka War Memorial Hall. The first item on our agenda is apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Vincent, who's at a friend's funeral down south. We have an apology from Councillor Lambert, who's on a planned change hearing for the hills in Mangawhai. And we have an apology from Councillor Naya, who is overseas. Can I have a mover for that motion, please? Second it. Okay, all those in favour raise their hand and say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. Can I call for a mover, please, for that? Councillor Howard, have a seconder.
Sorry, through the chair, with the confirmation of the agenda, we're just noting the withdrawal of item 4.5, which is the Mangawhai Harbour Restoration Society guarantee.
Okay.
Under standing orders 9.9. So that is part of the.
Part of the record. Yep. Can I have a confirmation for that, please? A mover. Councillor Howard, second it. I'll second that. All those in favour raise their hand and say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Any conflicts of interest to declare today, please? Okay, no conflicts of interest. We move to the fun part, which is the public forum. And first on our list for that is Dot Gorrie. Welcome, Dot, and she'll be presenting topic the Northern Wairau River, then and now. Welcome, Dot.
Well, it was in the September meeting last year that we had a delegation come up to the meeting from Roy about the flooding. Well, there's a bit more to the flooding than what there is now. Going back further, this is the opposite hunting park to Te Kaipara, there was a island still there, but I don't think you can actually call it an island anymore. It was run by different names through the years. Then we got a real map, and that's changed as well. Okay. Now this one is a lucky find and a whole pile of family photos of a floodgate. But when you look from the floodgate to the island, it's not very big. But years ago, a boat called the Tui used to be able to go up through the gap between the island and the land. And of course, they went to Pilbury School, but of course that's closed in 1947. This is from the top of the hill, looking down to show you exactly where it's from. Does it look like an island? No. I actually drove onto it, because there's a bridge you go over, asked one of the locals, you know, where's the island? She said, oh, you're standing on it. So, can you really call it an island? Right. Now, this is something you'll never see again. Not only did they change the bridge, even the ships don't come up this far anymore. Okay, now this was recently, and all that like that black stuff, yeah, was actually part of the build-up silt. Now there's several different places of build-up of silt on either side of the bridge. There's one almost out from the Northern Wairau Boating Club. They actually went out and played cricket on one time when the tide was out. So that's how big some of these build-ups of silt are getting in this part of the river. I think that's it. Oh yes, and that's the Kaihu River. Well, when I grew up on the farm, but back down onto the river, wasn't that colour. And of course, the drag line used to dredge the rivers then. Of course, now they've only got a long reach digger and it's not getting the same stuff out of the river like they used to. Can we go back to food? Right. Now, with the silt build-up, also opposite on the other side of the river was 4 large poles that a barge would tie up, because I think they had batteries in it, and somebody said, oh yeah, Nola's used to have their wine statue in the bar over there, but that's disappeared now. That Manchurian ricegrass has now come out more than 50 metres from the land's edge. So there's another part of the river the river is getting narrower and shallower with all these things that are happening, like the silt builds up and the ricegrass coming out. And I think that's about all I've known about.
Thank you, Dot. Any questions of Dot? Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Dot. Good history. The rice grass are you talking about? Is this right opposite Dargaville town?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, if you go back to that first one, Kelly. See that you can see the rice grass on that, no, back one. Back one, yeah. See the rice grass, that pointy piece.
On the right-hand side
On
there.
the right-hand side, that's all rice grass. And that rice grass was pulled out as Phyllis, these sailing ships. And of course, when they got here, what they do? Throw it overboard. And that's how that got here. So.
And taking that whole corner.
Well, no, it's not the whole corner, it's virtually up the other side of the river as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it comes down as far as Ruai though, but pretty close, down to Toke anyway. Yeah.
Thank you. No,
You're right.
marvellous.
Yeah.
Councillor Larson.
Oh, thank you. You think, Scott, it's really interesting to see that old photography.
I'm getting a bit deaf, Jonathan.
I said, thanks, Scott. It's really interesting to see that old photography.
Yes.
In terms of what you see as a solution to some of these issues.
Yes.
Would you be happy to raise this with the Northland Regional Council, who
Yep.
that within their jurisdiction?
Yep. Because, you know, I don't know about anybody else, but I mean, I contribute to the Kaihu River Drainage Board. And I mean, I hadn't seen anything done for years. And it was only since we've had the cyclone that a small section of it, the Kaihu River was actually dredged. So, and I don't think they're getting what we're not getting our money's worth. So spoke to one farmer and he said they pay $4,000 a year for towards the drainage system. So what's the Northland Regional Council doing with our money?
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much.
Just for your interest, Dot, next Thursday, we actually have a meeting with Grant McCullum MP regarding the flooding in Dargaville and with NRC there.
Yep.
So it is on their radar, I believe,
Yep.
and as it should.
Yep. I mean, we've got plenty of photos at the museum if anyone wants to come and have a look at the flooding.
Councillor Paniora.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to say that it is a real concern, the silt build-up and the destruction that it's having in the Kaipara Moana, which the tributaries feed into. There is also the Kaipara Moana remediation program that's happening at the moment. I'm not too sure if you're aware of that.
Who?
The Kaipara Moana remediation program. So it's a joint effort collaboration between the various councils and Northland Regional Council to try and plant riparian planting and fencing of waterways around those that feed into the Kaipara Harbour, including the Northern Wairoa, because the silt is having a destructive effect on our marine life as well, our kahawai, our spawning and breeding grounds and mutating so there is something that's happening. It's going to take a long time. It's a generational thing, but I just want to, yeah, mahi to you. Thank you for coming in and speaking.
Apparently the river up near Dargaville used to be dredged so that the ships could come in. So back to dredging, I think.
Can I ask you, Dot, where did they take the dredgings in those days?
Sorry, I'm getting a bit.
Can I ask you, did you have any knowledge of where they took the dredgings in those days?
You can always put it along the bank somewhere and make a stop bank and then put a cycle trail on it.
Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good on you.
Okay. Next in our public forum We have Mike McGarry, Chairman of the Mangawhai Domain Society. Topic is the Rose Madsen Cottage. Welcome, Mike.
It's more of a plea to the historical responsibilities of I chair the Mangawhai Domain, which owns all the land in Moya Street with the hall, the recreational facility, the dog park, green space, which has been in private ownership through an incorporated society in Mangawhai since 1959 and has operated and supplied facilities to Mangawhai that at that point in time weren't provided by council. That world has changed, but during that time period, famous name being Mr. McCurchin negotiated with the Mangawhai Domain that when they moved the Rose Madsen Cottage from the corner in the south part of the Mangawhai Domain to its current location, that the Domain would supply sewage, car parking, all the facilities that a building requires, vehicle access and all of those other things for a cost and per annum cost. And at that stage, Mr. McCurchin was quite generous and because he believed in the Domain, he gave it some more money. And in those days, it was $10,000. Now, like most of the records in Mangawhai in the old days and this council in its previous states, things weren't recorded particularly well. And so it moved on. And in 2012, there was a renegotiation of which one of our current members was at, and it negotiated it down to $4,000 per annum. And the council paid that in 2012. After that time period, both parties had to recognise both silly. Council didn't record it as an annual payment, and the Domain, because of its change in committee members or whatever, it got forgotten about as well. So time drifted on, and in 2016, Jill McPherson attended a meeting at the Mangawhai Domain and was to go away and investigate, and agreed that it was in place. Needed to investigate it and put it through council again. Same thing happened again. Drifts on, it drifts on and drifts on. Until, you know, I became involved about 4 years ago, took up the chair and slowly been working through, for lack of better words, forensic on the history of the Domain. And this popped up. I approached council in September of last year through the corporate structure. And the corporate structure agreed and is working towards an agreement with us, a legally binding agreement for access to all of those things. That's an issue that isn't for here. Why I'm here is to ask, why haven't we been paid? And I think we've identified that. Everyone just literally forgot about it. But we're seeking that compensation in hindsight from 2013 through to 2023 at the rate of $4,000 per annum. And we're seeking that council pay that, and I'm informed through the corporate structure of council, only the councillors can determine that that be paid in hindsight. From where, I don't know, but the Domain is a registered charity. It's funded by volunteers. It provides services that Mangawhai wouldn't have otherwise, like a walking park for dogs. It supplies so many facilities, 24-hour toilets, and all of those other things. So effectively, asking that council pays up its debt.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your presentation. I'm interested to know just if you could explain further, if you were to receive that funding, what it would be able to go towards.
Pays to maintain the Domain. It takes about between $40,000 and $50,000 to maintain the Domain, including rates and all of the other costs that go with that. We have a part-time bookings officer and administrator who works a few hours a week. We have a part-time caretaker, and both of those people charge out about 20% of what they actually do. But that's the way these things work. So that money would go towards paying our bills, which it should have done each year progressively. But being a lump sum amount of money, that is the chair, we have an old children's playground, which I believe is beyond use, it needs to be replaced. And we haven't discussed it with council going forward as to which part, what goes on there, but we're looking to replace that children's playground. And so, you know, my recommendation to the current committee would be it was taken and banked as the start of that campaign to raise $200,000 for children's playground. So that would be my intent as the chair. And hopefully I can convince the rest of the people to do that.
Thanks.
Councillor Larson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could you clarify, have you made a written request or submission to the council staff for the money that you're seeking?
The historical money?
Yes.
Yes, we have. Had a meeting with Jason
Okay.
back in September, and then subsequent discussions and meetings with Sarah Morris.
Okay.
And it's moved through to that they identify that historical debt just can't be paid out of current accounts, if you like, because of its historical nature and the fact funding's tight. You've asked them to pull their head in, and their recommendation was to bring it here, the only place that can make that decision. And you know, the mayoral fund's got plenty apparently, so.
Thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, Mr Wealthy Mayor. Thanks, Mike. Can you just elaborate for all members on the areas in which the Domain Board help other groups in the community?
Yes, I can. You know, it's like most of these organisations, they're pretty quiet people. They don't mouth off or do much. But in terms of the community, that park area, if you like, it provides all the services to the soccer club per annum, which has about 360 members, and they pay about $300 a quarter. So we're subsidising that heavily. There was a soccer club annual events, we subsidise those. We supply power, water, all of the facilities, no charge. And there is a dog club that's been there forever. And again, they pay $20 a Wednesday to use all our facilities. There are other organisations. The tennis club has been an anchor in there from way back when it moved from Inslee Street in Mangawhai to the Domain. And as an anchor tenant, they lease the land off us. And it's the only genuine one that I agree with. It's a genuine commercial lease. It just makes sense for everybody. It's legally binding. It's all good. But they pay they don't even pay our rates per annum for the use of that large facility, 6 tennis courts. So again, it subsidises all of that. It subsidises the school by running all the running races and everything else are all in the Domain, no charge. So tennis, dog, soccer, cricket, Northland cricket, use it once a week in the period, $14 a week. You know, so we earn money through gala, through supporting car shows, all of these other facilities purely to generate money to fund those things, because dog clubs, they've got no money. Tennis club, you'd think a tennis club would have money because Remuera, they've got millions, but in Mangawhai, they've got about genuine 90 members who pay sort of $60 a year, but half that goes to the tennis association. So they're strapped for cash. And the facility's always been generous towards all of those people. But unfortunately, it needs its income, and part of that is budgeted on that money that's, we're contracting facilities out. We don't hold the leases with TFI Trust. We didn't hold the lease with Plunkett. That's council. Council basically need to be paying their share.
I think you missed one. That was, what's the arrangement with the men's shed?
Oh, the men, yeah, I did. I did the Mangawhai shed. They get a bit sensitive about the word men, apparently, trying to attract ladies. So they came to the organisation a few years ago, a year before my time, and they negotiated a licence to occupy, which I hate with a passion, unless it's an old folks' home. And they came on board and they put the man shed in the corner, nice building, using all of our facilities again, but they pay a peppercorn rent.
Right.
Don't even, no sharing in any of the costs. So peppercorn rent, but they do a good job in the community. So how do you penalise that? So again, we seem to carry the load for all of these things. So we look for every penny we can get where it's owed to us.
Councillor Taharoa.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't know whether you're allowed to disclose this information in a public setting, but how much do you have in your bank accounts currently, collectively?
Collectively?
So all the different suffixes.
So what's what are you leading to with the question?
To decide whether you require backdating of payments to pay for the bills.
I disagree with your comments on the basis of that agreement was a commercial agreement which is entitled to be paid to the domain regardless of how much money it has in the bank.
So are you prepared to answer the question?
Public knowledge, any member, if you pay $10 and become a member, you can demand that information immediately.
Can I ask then?
It's currently in the current account, about $50,000. In the, there's a couple of term investments for playground type things. That's about 30,000.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Just going further from the shed, and you mentioned TFI Trust. Can you elaborate on your relationship with the TFI Trust?
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And what you provide.
Okay. So in terms of the TFI Trust, we don't get involved in their day-to-day operation and they don't get involved in ours. It does tend to happen because they have no land. And they can't access, it's too dangerous to put an entranceway in there off Moya Street. So therefore, we supply entrance, concrete driveway, which was paid for by us, but through grants and other bits and pieces. And they provide to us nothing. So entrance, car parking, driveway access, sewage system is our sewage system. It's not on the council sewage system. It's on a standalone sewage system. So we maintain all of that. And as recently as this week, Plunkett decided they were going to do baby seat checks. Great thing they're doing. But they turned around and TFI said publicly in our car park, which is Mangawhai Domain's car park. So it's the consultation process as well. It's a bit like, communication, at least ask before you just take things. So, but again, if they had dedicated parking spaces that is paid for, they lease off Kaipara District Council. So you're getting lease income, but you're not recognising part of your lease income is actually owed to someone else who's providing services and has done forever. So I know I harp on about that, but those services are critical to TFI, and we've never denied them anything because they need to operate. They do good work. But we come back to the commercial reality of things. There is a commercial situation here. This isn't about a charity. We're a charity, they're a charity. This isn't about giving money. This is about commercial contracts. So regardless, that money can be used for, charitable acts somewhere else. We don't in this country have means testing, and that asking about money is a means testing exercise.
Any further questions? Thanks, Mike. That's something for our consideration.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation.
I'll be on your case.
Very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Next on our list is the confirmation of the open minutes. I need to move it for that? Yeah. Move that. Okay, I'll move that. Can I have a second?
Yep.
Councillor Howard, all those in favour, raise their hand, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is 4.1, private plan change 82 Moonlight Heights, final decision. Can our reporting officer, Michael Day, please present for that? Actually, before I do that, can I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Wilson-Collins. Can I have a seconder?
I'll see.
Howard.
On team.
Thank you.
So the purpose of this paper is to seek approval to incorporate private plan change 82 into the operative district plan. So private plan change 82, private plan change at Albakino Road, Dargaville. It proposes to rezone some 9 hectares of land from rural to residential. it's been going through the formal RMA Schedule 1 process. This is the last stage of that formal process. You will recall at the February 2024 council meeting that you approved and adopted the recommendations, the hearing panel to approve the plan change. Plan change, then time where appellants could appeal to the Environment Court. No appeals have been received, and therefore this is the last stage of the process. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions of Michael? Any questions? Thank you, Michael.
Oh, there's one.
Oh, there's one, sorry.
Yeah, just a second, I'm sure I sent some questions in.
So the plan change,
Oh, she's looking for that.
I,
You just after,
I got it.
you got it.
Thank you. So I was just curious, so this private plan change, I was curious because I know I'll get asked and I know the answer is how long is a piece of string, but I was just curious to know how long from this point until we could expect a dweller, and I know it's not an easy answer, but everyone's going to start asking when is movement going to start happening?
that's a good point. And so, as I've said in the report, the development may enable up to 384 dwellings within the plan change area. The applicant owns the majority of the land in the plan change site, but not all land.
Right.
That's quite common in a plan change, in a private plan change application where an applicant puts forward the plan change but does not own all land. So what I can say is that post the operative date of 25 June, the land will be zoned residential in the operative district plan. So in theory, any landowner in the area will have an opportunity to start developing their land.
Right.
Rural, with lots. Look, I can't say.
No, I know, but it still gives
I can say.
something to go with.
What I can say is it's really good news for Dargaville, right? There is a shortage of dwellings in Dargaville, and this is really good for Dargaville and the district as a whole.
And I expect demand will actually drive how quickly things move, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. My other question that I sent in was that it says in the report, that as you've just said, this will get put into the operative district plan. We've got a draft district plan in review at the moment. What's the time frame with that?
So the working party is holding monthly meetings at the moment and has been for the past 6 or so months. Look, developing a new district plan is complex, and all I can say is the working party is stepping through the provisions in a robust manner, and we are making progress. Yeah, but just to be clear that this plan change results in a change to the operative district. Right?
Yeah, understand. Okay.
Councillor Taharoa, you have a question?
Thank you. So moving forward in terms of the resource consents for the plan change, now I know that there was an issue with the capacity in Dargaville. How is that being reconciled, or will that be an issue moving forward in the consents?
No, so all the experts have agreed that there are viable solutions for wastewater, that there's enough headroom in the Dargaville system currently to accommodate the potential dwellings here. And look, you have to realise that it could be 10 or so years until the whole site is built out. It's not going to happen overnight. And look, if you even take Mangawhai Central as an example, that private plan change was adopted some 2 odd years ago, and there's still no residential development happening there as well. So just because the land is now rezoned residential does not mean overnight you're going to see 300 dwellings pop up. I'm imagining it will be a staged approach.
What's the capacity for Dargaville? So is there a lot more room on that 384? So I'll rephrase my question. If other developments occur simultaneously that then take that capacity, what is our capacity over the next couple of years?
So look, my understanding is that the infrastructure capacity of the Dargaville wastewater system is being constantly upgraded. It's quite complex, for example, and it does depend on, for example, the loading of silver fern farms and other factors which go into the system. But simple terms is that all the experts are saying there's enough headroom in the system currently and in the near to medium term future as well.
So what are
An expert in this space, I have to rely on their expertise.
what are the figures given for the headway?
Off the top of my head, I can't answer that.
Look, I don't think that's relevant to what we're doing here. Any further questions? Councillor Mendelson.
And I'd like you to comment on 39 hectares of land provides how many future sections?
What I've just said, Councillor Manderson, is that this plan change enables up to 384 dwellings built in the plan change area.
Okay, so if I put that another way, how many years' supply of sections does that provide?
I don't think we can tell that practically, Ron.
Sorry?
Don't think we can anticipate that too closely.
Yeah.
Based on current figures, we'd probably have that from Infometrics, but I don't think that's an answer Mike can give us here today.
No, and further to my point, look, it's good news for Dargaville and the district as a whole.
Sorry, say that again, please.
This is good news for Dargaville and the wider district.
You mean the provision of sections that people don't want?
That's purely speculative. We'll see. Thank you very much. You can stand down.
I've lived there all around this. And
We won't have any discussion outside the meeting, please. Do you have a statement, Erin?
Okay, cool. Being a resident of Dargaville for 42 years and seeing Dargaville get stifled by the fact that there is no land available to be built on, and also running a business that cannot recruit and relocate staff because there is nowhere for them to live. And also when I stood for council, having been lobbied by businesses that begged and begged for land to be opened up for commercial and residential area for the exact same. There is a shortage of houses in Dargaville. This is a well-known fact, and I am confident that this plan change will see growth in Dargaville. It's welcomed by the people who live in Dargaville and the people who run businesses in Dargaville, and it's looked forward to. It's been watched closely. It's in an area that can be developed well. It's been planned well, and it is going to open up a whole new world for little old Dargaville. I'm just so excited. The reason why, one of the reasons why I'm asking is when, is because this really needed to happen 3 to 5 years ago. I know businesses have been struggling for at least that long to be able to recruit people and relocate them into town. At the moment, if you want to rent a house in Dargaville, you're looking at $600 a week. Like, how ridiculous is that? And that is purely because there is a shortage of houses. So even when we get to a point where we want to get professionals to move into town, that kind of rent is astronomical for what we're looking at. So this is as Michael Day has commented several times this morning, this is good news for Dargaville. Development isn't always welcomed, and we've been seeing that in our LTP submissions. But in this instance, this is only a good thing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some good planned development, some new housing opened up, and the growth of the town where we can actually get our dentist back or get our optometrist back, get growth happening in town where we can get those services and provide housing for the people who want to provide those services as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next 10 years. The question about how long it takes, yeah, demand will drive that. I've seen developments in the past that have stagnated because they were at a time when people weren't looking to relocate, but then all of a sudden they just go and they're up and they've happened. And yeah, so even if this doesn't take off straight away, it's absolutely going to fill a need and it's not going to lay bare. So yeah, so absolutely looking forward to it. And thank you to the staff for all the work they've put into it. And obviously I support the motion. Kia ora.
Thank you. Second statement, councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think Councillor Wilson-Collins has so eloquently said everything that I totally agree with. I'm hugely supportive and really enthusiastic about this, and I think that I believe that what we'll see from what I've read and what I've heard, you know, anecdotally in the community, is that this will open up demand and it will fill itself of its own right, and it just provides all of the opportunity that Erin is well covered. So I too am very enthusiastically supportive, and I think this is a great day for Dagenham.
Okay, any other elected members wish to speak? Okay, movers right up reply, councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
The only thing that I've left to add is that what I really hope this does for Dargle is at least change the rental demand and help with cost of rents. If there's more houses, I'm really hoping that that's going to be one of the kickbacks as well, because the renting in Dargle is just out of this world.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the motion. All those in favour raise their hand and say aye.
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 Against? Motion carried. Thank you. So move on to adoption fees and charges 4.2 on the agenda. Has everybody received an update sent by Alana?
Yes.
Stating some of the figures that weren't updated. Is that correct, Alana? Yep.
Correct. Yes.
So presenting this one will be Joy.
Good morning, Your Worship and councillors. So this morning I'm presenting the paper to get the fees and charges adopted. On the 29th of March, Council agreed for them to go out for public consultation for a period of that finished on the 9th of May. There was 9 submissions received, and we had a deliberation meeting on the 22nd of May, and there were some adjustments made to the schedule as written in the report.
Is there any questions on this item? Councillor Taharoa.
Thank you. So in the proposed fees and charges, which didn't make it to the final version, there were fees for Kiwi to recover for time on pre-applications. So just confirming that that will still sit within the budget and still be paid. This may be a question for staff.
So, Chair, I'll answer that. Yes, it'd be a contracted service.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, look, before you have any further questions, can I get a mover, please, for this? Councillor Howard, seconder.
Okay.
Councillor Williams. Okay, any further questions for Joy, please? Okay, Joy, you can stand down. Yeah.
And thank you very much. Goodbye.
Mover's statement.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I don't believe that anything further needs to be added. We discussed this well and truly a week ago or so, and the proposal reflects the mood of that meeting. So all good, it's all done, and let's do it.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, look, I concur with Councillor Howard. I could make the meeting myself, but I know that there's been a good process that's been followed in deliberations, and we've landed here, so it's good to go.
Thank you. Any other elected members wish to speak? Okay, movers right to reply.
No further comment. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, let's move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise their hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Move to item 4.3, which I will move. Better off funding. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Howard.
Speaking of,
Okay,
is that not a conflict of interest, some of the items within that piece?
look, conflicts of interest were to be declared at the start of the meeting. There have been no conflicts put, so no.
Is there not
And
an item?
sorry, you're interrupting the meeting. I'm telling you, this is not a time to raise up conflicts of interest. If you believe there's a conflict of interest, bring it up later.
Bring it up after the.
Bring it up after, because we have not got conflicts of interest here.
There's a golf club,
Uh,
funding amount.
Maybe you'd like Mr Maris to comment.
Through you,
Mr. Maris.
If I could, so it is up to each elected member to declare their conflict.
That's right.
And the elected member you're talking about has not declared a conflict, so that's where it sits. What I would say, and Anand will talk to, about the golf club, and this has been a topic of conversation over many months about what we're doing to distribute wastewater in better part of the project.
Okay, before we have Anand talk to this, I'd like to, as the mayor of the district, my responsibility is that we are fair and equitable right through our district with what we do with funding. I'd just like Anand to outlay some of the costings that we spread around the district so that we get an understanding. We've had social media comments this last week, which I think are inappropriate. And I'd just like to clarify where our costings are going. Could you please outline that for us, Anand?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So across the 4 districts, including Mangawhai, I mean, in Dargaville, we're spending in the order of 400,000 each year on stormwater, and there's some carryovers that'll continue. Wastewater is the treatment plant upgrades, and there's some renewals around Dargaville. That's 1.2 million. And water supply in Dargaville is 540. So all up around $2 million. Dargaville, Mangawhai, we're spending 200,000 on wastewater, and close to 1. Better off, sorry, we're getting government funding to assist us with that. So in Dargaville, quite close to $1 million. As with the TK Stop Bank and Awakino Stop Bank, Ruawai is $5 million, quite close to, sorry, with regards to the Canal G gate that we've presented in the past, and we'll talk about it this afternoon. In the externally funded projects, and we're spending close to 700,000 on about. So all up, there's quite a bit of money going around the district. There's more funding allocated in future LTPs, and we're also doing work in the Mangawhai district, as you're aware. We're doing the indent system, along with quite a few wastewater reticulation upgrades and pump station upgrades. So quite a bit of money spread right across the whole district.
Thank you. Could you present your item?
So I'll take the report as read. I just want to confirm a few key points for clarity. So we're now talking about the Better Off funding package, which was awarded to Kaipara District Council a few years ago, and we received $16 million first application. That was then reduced down to $4 million. So tranche 2 was removed when Labor government changed leadership. And at that time, staff worked for about 9 months to gain consensus around the district and with our key stakeholders to redirect that funding to alternative projects on behalf of elected members. We weren't able to get that across the line, so we kicked off the community hubs with that confirmed $4 million through project planning and engagement through the long-term plan, which has just been underway recently.
However, in April, central government under the National Coalition announced the establishment of Local Waters Done Well framework and transitional arrangements. So they've specifically said that there's a requirement for councils to develop water service delivery plans and or potential CCOs because there's no additional funding available for local governments across New Zealand to access to move into the local waters done well space. So I'll just direct your attention to attachment B of my report, and in the second main paragraph, Cabinet directed the Department of Internal Affairs to work in partnership with Crown infrastructure partners and councils to review the status of any current Better Off projects, including expenditure incurred to date and committed expenditure, and identify if any opportunities exist for your council to redirect unspent Better Off funding to increase investment in water infrastructure or to establish new water delivery, water services delivery organisations. So they've directed us to present this paper to council and ask council to make a decision about how they would like to spend that money. So we are recommending that we reserve the $400,000 that the Community Hubs has already drawn down and has committed. We are saying that we should redirect money to the Local Waters Done Well transition and to the waters projects that Anand has identified.
Thank you. Happy to elaborate a little bit more, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay. So table one sort of sets out what we intend. So I won't go cover that off. We have $2 million worth of uncommitted funds as a result of not using all the Better Off funding, and there's some transitional funds that surplus transitional funds in conducting the hubs and the local water done well. We have $3.2 million to allocate. So the government's quite clear in their direction and the correspondence to us is that they would like to see that money be directed back into infrastructure. So we've taken the opportunity while we're going through this LTP process to do one of two things. One, look for projects that are debt funded that might assist us to our community by utilising some of the funds from that uncommitted fund. And then we're also looking for additional investment projects where we can put the surplus investment into. Speak a little bit louder because of the rain. So the first column there, it talks about replacing debt-funded projects. Be very clear with council that we're not removing any of the projects from the program. So when we talk about water supply reticulation, $500,000, we're not removing that. We're actually maintaining that and adding a further $100,000 to that program. Now that water supply program of works is across the district. So it's not in one particular area, it is actually spread across the whole district as we need renewals in that area. Mangawhai treatment plant, there's further investment of, or an investment of 1.5 required. And again, we're not saying we're not going to do that, we're just replacing it with the funds that have become available. In addition, we're adding another $100,000 to that program. The Mangawhai subsurface irrigation, this is a program of works that are brought to the council over a year. You will recall, Mr. Mayor, that we got approval for, I put a paper which outlined 4 stages of our Mangawhai wastewater scheme. We've finished stage 1 and I'm pleased to say that we'll have a paper on that at the end of the month for elected members in terms of post-implementation review. What we are finding is a desire to accelerate the source of our treated effluent where it goes. At the moment it goes to Brown Road. We are having some constraints at Brown Road. We've had correspondence from the Medical Officer of Health with respect to issues that are coming off that farm. And I have said to elected members on numerous occasions that the golf course is the ideal opportunity for council to utilise disposal of its treated effluent. So we're taking the opportunity to bring forward some funding
with respect to that subsurface irrigation. It is required. We are addressing at the moment a public health issue with some residents in the area, and we are looking for alternative disposals. We actually do have an alternative disposal. It is the golf club, and we're seeking to put some additional fund in addition to the LTP funding that we've identified over the 3 years. Similarly with wastewater renewals, we're not replacing any program, but we're actually adding 248,000 to that district-wide wastewater renewal program. So you'll see there, Mr. Mayor, that the placing the project dollars, and we're adding an additional 1.2, and that gives us the makeup of the $3.2 million that is uncommitted. The recommendation is that council proceeds to reallocate the funds rather than give the funds back. The government's got strong directions that they wish us to continue to utilise those funds, but in the Three Waters space.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Taharoa.
Yes, the Chair. So you mentioned all the amounts for investment in Dargaville, but you skipped over Mangawhai. You failed to mention the amount for the indent system, which is in excess of $20 million. So that was a bit of a one-sided brief. So can you explain, so you've just explained the amounts for Dargaville's infrastructure investment. Can you explain the amounts now exactly as you did for what's been invested in Moonlight?
So, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I did say that I will be bringing a paper at the end of the month that will talk in more detail around Mangawhai, but the indent system is not $20 million. It's $1 million total investment. The purchase of the...
Stage one. Right. Talking about the full stages.
Well, if I can just clarify the indents, and I'll cover the future stages. So the $1 million includes the purchase of the unit from the United States, which has arrived and it's now installed. And then there's the installation of it, which comes to a sum of $1 million in total. I just want to bring elected members back to my paper that the overall wastewater in Mangawhai is sitting at around about $72 million.
72 million.
Total scheme over the decade, $72 million. So at the moment, what we've been able to do is limit council's exposure in funding by introducing the indent system, which gives us the capacity required to address the growth in the coming 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years. So in the future, we will need to do further upgrades, but at the moment, the indent system provides us that little bit of headroom that we do need for all the growth that's going on.
And the further, so you've laid out the Dargaville and the Tipopuru, there's more than just that as well.
Absolutely. I've just outlined the programs.
Be fair, because you've outlined all of the amounts to Dargaville, but you've skipped well and truly over.
No, no, he hasn't. He's just explained quite clearly what the indent system is going to cost, how long it will give us, and what the proposals going forward are.
Wow, that have been.
I think your questions have been fully answered.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has.
The question is, the paper, you said that the paper was very clear in what needed to be done with the funds. So what's very clear is that the Department of Internal Affairs has asked to work with councils and iwi collectives to align with the local water done well. The next question that I have is, to what extent have you consulted with iwi on this proposal that's before us today? In particular, Taharoa.
But we haven't consulted with iwi on redirecting the funds because we're currently asking council if that's their desire. So the central government is first of all asking whether or not council has a
So why are we including subjects and funding? It's a bit hard to ask questions when you're sighing and speaking.
I'm not sighing, I'm just referring to Jason Maris, if he'd like to make a comment.
So should the question on the table for a motion today not be whether we have a desire to redirect and not this is what we're redirecting the projects to? Because Department of Internal Affairs has said to work with councils and iwi, not just councils.
See you, Maris.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, no, we are seeking a decision of you today. That is very clear from the report.
That's why I have to sure that.
Thank you.
Can you let him speak, please?
And the reason we're doing this is because there is a possible positive impact on the rates increase. That is why we have.
Can you let him finish, please, before you interrupt?
And that is why we have, why Anand's outlined that we've looked for debt-funded projects in the first instance, because that has a positive impact on the rates increase, i.e. it could reduce the rates increase because of the interest costs, that sort of thing, as part of the LTP. Now, you are scheduled to do your deliberations and decision-making on the LTP next Wednesday. So it's important that this come to this meeting so you can make a decision on this. We will go with the will of.
I was not in the room when this was consulted on at the last meeting. You haven't even consulted with councillors, let alone iwi.
I've just explained why it's on the agenda, Councillor Taharoa, and the timing and why it's here early.
So why can
I think he's explained.
Motion that's well and truly past what it's supposed to be, it needs to be a motion to redirect the funds and then collaborate with affected parties on what that might look like before we just embark on a redirection altogether. Now, the third question that I have is, was the water storage for Dargaville, being that the paper says that it's also to increase investment in water infrastructure, was it not considered water storage through Taitoketo or Wairotua Dam? Because Dargaville was successful in securing that funding, that better off funding, and without any consultation from Dargaville councillors, from iwi within Dargaville, that you've taken it upon yourself to redirect that funding out of the Dargaville community and into other water infrastructure investments.
So look, we're going on, Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor, we're going on the direction that is provided. And they've said that there's no further tranches to the better off funding. So that the cap that we have is the $4 million. The remainder of that $4 million is $3.2 million because we want to retain a certain amount of funding to continue with the consultation of the hubs, as well as ensuring that we've got sufficient money for local water done well when that program legislation is in place. There'll be a program of works that we will have to respond to. The Wairotua Dam and or the alternative scheme that we're looking at, there's two options on the table, and I've mentioned this to councillors a few times, has an investment need of approximately $10 to $15 million. And so the $3 million will not contribute towards an outcome. And so the delta there is in $10 million that council has not funded for in its LTP. And so we don't want to risk having the money return back to government. We want to use the money in the period that they've defined that we must use it by, which my understanding is 2026, 27. Otherwise, we'll lose it. So what we are doing is we're actually doing a benefit for the community. In terms of the security of supply, that's a separate program of works that we're also seeking external funding for. But $3 million when we require $10 million and council does not have that funding in its 3-year LTP, it just does not make sense why we would allocate that fund to that scheme when we've got live projects that we want to have completed here and now.
Final question.
No, I think you've had your questions. Any further?
Final question.
No, sorry, you've had your questions. Any further questions? Okay.
Chair.
Councillor Aaron Wilson-Collins.
I sent in some questions ahead of time. And I think one of them has been answered, which was, I asked exactly what the renewals were, but I guess they're just things that get done when they need to get done. Like it's not a planned program, which is it?
Yeah, so through you, Chair, well, there's a reactive component to it, which we deal with in OPEX, and then there's a planned component which we deal with in CAPEX. And we are reviewing the program of work with water and wastewater across the district. And there are renewals identified in Dargaville. We want to specifically talk about Dargaville.
No, I don't. The other, and then I was also asking why the water security project for Dargaville wasn't included, and I think you've answered that. I also asked why the replacement pipe from Kaihu to Dargaville is not included, which I assume will be a similar explosive cost reason.
Yeah, so the Waitua Dam, we've actually got a pipe that goes from the Kaihu to the plant.
Yes.
What we suffer from is when the river levels drop, we have restrictions go in place. So there's a project that we increase or enhance our Waitua Dam, but we need to bring a pipeline from the dam to the river. And that pulls, it's a pull and push. So we'll push water and pull water when we can harvest water. That investment is in the order of $10 million. So, we haven't included that in this LTP, and we are seeking external funds for that. So redirecting $3 million towards a fund, a program of works that we actually don't have the balance of funds to complete, will mean that we will lose the funds because we will not complete that work by 2027. What we have put in for though is there's a number of external government funding opportunities that we have put forward, the Dargaville security of supply, like if I want to call it that. So we're hopeful that we do get funding for that. If we're not successful, then in the next LTP, council is going to have to seriously consider that scheme in its proposal. In terms of the Tito Taharoa Trust, again, it's bringing water from their dam to Dargaville, and we are in discussions with the trust just at a very high level because council has asked us to keep considering those options around bringing the pipe to the plant and then also providing the water. And again, that all comes into the capital cost, and that is sitting in the $10+ million as well. So if we had an opportunity to use this funding for that project, we certainly would have been on the list. But given the fact that given the amount, and this is a small, council doesn't have the amount to recover, we don't want to lose the opportunity for securing these funds across the district and give the money back. So hence why we put a paper, one that benefits the community overall from a rates increase, and then we're also doing some additional enhancement and investment. And the Mangawhai subsurface irrigation, we actually are facing constraints at the farm. And, as officers of council, we've got to do our due diligence and start to address some of the concerns that the medical officer has indicated to us. The NRC are also indicating to us. We had the NRC come and talk to council at the last LTP briefing around abatement notices. So council has to act, and what we're saying is that we need to bring some investment forward in that subsurface irrigation. The reason why we're bringing that forward is that the golf club are also looking to do some enhancements where we want to do the subsurface irrigation. So we want to take the opportunity rather than let them do what they want to do and then us come in and have to redo what they've done. So there's some cost efficiencies in doing this work at the same time as they're doing their landscaping and recontouring of land.
Can I just clarify something? I realise I don't have the information for, because we keep talking about the Dargaville storage and we've got those two options, and one is the dam. The existing pipeline to Kaihu, would that remain even if we, right?
It does.
Doesn't that pipeline need replacing too?
My understanding is that sections of it have been replaced and it's in good condition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, council staff, you can stand down. At this stage, I have no further comment other than to say that I think it's a practicable use of the money to get projects that need completion done, and I think it's fair and equitable. Seconded statement, Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, well, I will have a couple of comments, and obviously I support this because I think that whilst it's sad that we can't put money into the hubs, there is good, productive redistribution of funds into projects that are absolutely needed. And I mean, you know, you can't sneeze at $1.5 million to help with the Mangawhai treatment plant. I think that, and if I address Councillor Paniora, I will do the respect of using title rather than just surname. The issue of conflict, I'll take it upon myself to raise it, was actually raised very early on in our tenure as councils on the specific subject. I've given about 4 years of my life, the last 4 years, on working on a solution, firstly as a member of the public and a representative, not an official member of the golf club. Actually, the result of the community panel initially and all of the work that was done has resulted in a hugely more efficient outcome for the disposal of water, of wastewater, over that side, over in Mangawhai. And in fact, the outcome is long-lasting, way beyond any concepts that actually were presented by consultants to council as being the best originally, and now have been actually discredited because of their short-term and short-sighted strategy and rationale. So the work that's gone into that particular project over, as I say, about 4 years, has actually come with huge, I mean, multi-million-dollar benefit to the overall community in terms of a very efficient outcome. So, you know, I am supporting it very much as a member of the community. I have no engagement, I have no involvement with the golf club other than actually being a life member. That's all I am there. I think that the other elements, I think that the water systems renewals and the wastewater systems renewals, they're all elements that we don't like to talk about. We don't, you know, you don't like to spend the money going underground and you don't see it. But hey, they are these commitments that we've got to address and we've got to face up to. As we've said, we've got issues with NRC and health department and things. So I think that all in all, it's good. And I can commend staff for the recommendations and looking at the range of options that we have here. And that's it.
Okay, any other elected members wish to speak? Paniora.
Yep, so I've made my points and views very clear on social media, so I'll just acknowledge that the comments that it's unfair and underhanded, I stand by those comments 100%. I've been in discussions with the CEO who has assured me that there's no political influence in the motion that's being made today. I don't buy that for a second. The direction from central government was clear that we were to put in proposals by the 30th of June as to whether we wanted to redirect the funding in consultation with iwi. That hasn't happened, and we've gone straight towards a motion to redirect to certain projects without any collaboration or consultation with affected parties. I think it's disgusting that the $1 million that was originally approved for the Dargaville community has been taken away. We went out for consultation on community hubs. We heard from the community as to what things that they wanted to see for that space. There was a lot of excitement around that. Only to turn around and be told that things being redirected to the Mangawhai Golf Course subsurface irrigation to other communities. Now, if we look at the paper and the direction from the paper that states that it's to be redirected to increase investment in water infrastructure and help establish new water services delivery organisation, Were there not 100 other things that the Dargaville community with that money that they were successful with, could they have not done with any of that? We look at the Dargaville community year in, year out. Our farmers, we're in drought conditions. Our businesses, the meatworks cannot operate with the water restrictions that we have in place because of water storage issues. Every single year, we kick the can down the road. And for Anand to sit there and say that we don't have the $10 million required, so therefore we won't put any of the money towards it, is the reason why we still don't have water storage all of these years later, is that's been the short-sighted view towards the investment. $1 million is better than nothing. We heard from a presenter today that's got a plan in place to chip away at the amount that he needs, the 200,000 to get to his goal. Our goal is $10 million. We had $1 million. Why could we not put that towards it? Talk to the government about the need for that. I've heard about the, PG of 2.0 fund that we're hoping that we're going to get some of that funding for the water storage because it's at the top of the list. Last time I checked, the top of the list was the airport, which would sit within that regional infrastructure fund more likely than water storage. The Kaihu River, we've got communities out there that for years have been able, have had to have water shipped out to them because they can't drink the water out there. These are health issues. They're the same community that supplies the entire of Dargaville and Bailey's Beach with water. And then we're saying that there's health issues over in Mangawhai, so we have to give $800,000 to the golf course. It's unequitable and it's unfair, and it's disgusting that this is continuing to happen and that the staff are being influenced somehow, some way by this, because it makes no sense whatsoever to me. We hear about Mangawhai having dog parks, this and that.
Point of order, Councillor Taharoa.
I've got one more.
No point of order. I'm the chair. Point of order. You are making accusations which you cannot back up. They're not true. The staff are doing their job
My opinion.
into what the DIA have instructed, but you're making accusations here.
The DIA have instructed that we look at increasing investment in water infrastructure.
We're doing.
Many projects in Dargaville, many that could do with that funding. You've just wasted half a minute of my time. I
haven't wasted.
Have that half a minute back.
No, you do not. I am chairing this meeting. I asked you to refrain from making accusations against staff, which essentially is what you're doing here during your rant.
What accusation did I make against them?
Because you said for 1 minute, you didn't think there was collusion between staff and members.
So where did, you just said
Hang on.
Ainan sat down, you said we have come to this agreement,
Just be quiet, please.
which I can go back on the,
Stop. I've asked you to stop.
no, I've endured 18
I've asked you to stop.
community members that you're going to make me.
Yeah, of this meeting, I'm asking you to stop while I intervene here.
It's just
We have gone through a process. I note you weren't at the briefing, right? If we have a recommendation here in front of us to divert the money.
Was I part of that?
But you weren't at the briefing.
Hang on, but that,
Now,
Jason, that wasn't
hang on,
part of the
hang on.
briefing.
I'm not going to go down this road.
It wasn't part of
You've
the,
had your time. You've made your statement. You've repeated yourself plenty of times. Has anyone else got a statement to make? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to just offer my sympathies and empathies to Councillor Paniora, and I completely feel her frustrations. On the surface, it is really difficult to see money that was tagged for investment in one area of the community redistributed to another area. And I think the passion that we're seeing at the council table is a good thing. It's good to have people pulling and pushing in different directions, and I don't think that should be stifled. I haven't been around for a long time, but I feel like it's long enough to have an understanding of what's trying to be achieved here. I am a huge advocate for the community hubs, especially in Dargaville. That's no secret. But it's been a farce, the journey that we've been on. when the community hubs were first pitched for Dargaville, the whole purpose really, let's strip it right back. The original purpose of it was to improve our library facilities. And it was going to be created by a trust. It was going, we're trust formed, money found somewhere, who knows, don't know, but that was the original plan. When the government came in with this better off funding, that was then tagged for those community hubs, which we have now seen disappear on us in several different ways until there is nothing left. So I would hope that moving forward, the community hubs would revert back to what was the original plan, and would then mean that even after all these years of going around and around in circles, thanks so much, central government, you're a star, we actually have not changed. It's still a possibility. It's still something that could be created for our communities by our communities. And I still advocate that that can be a really good thing. I'm also really mindful, I've been making my way through the LTP 733 submissions. Thank you, community, you're the best. And what I can hear over and over again is that, rightly or wrongly, I don't know that we got the communication right. I think the community feel that we're spending ratepayer funding on the community hubs, but they are screaming out for us to not be investing in new projects and to be looking at ways to reduce the rates. And so I can see the sense that this makes. In regards to the Mangawhai subsurface irrigation and allowing the wastewater to be treated and disposed of in Mangawhai, that also is something that has been in the pipeline for such a long time. As long as I've been on council, it's been talked about, planned for, and tried to get budgeted for. So yeah, there's some history there. It's not necessarily absolutely ideal. I'm disappointed that we haven't consulted with iwi, and I did not see or have any input into what these projects were, but I have an understanding of what's going on, possibly more than others because I've been here for an extra term and understand some of the history behind all of this. Look, I think anything that's going to reduce the rates increases. I think anything that's investing in our water infrastructure right now over anything else is actually a priority. And so I'm not entirely happy with what we've got in front of us, but I'm not completely opposed to it. Thank you.
Councillor Larson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I think it's important for us to just recap the history to all of this because there is quite a history to it. And the previous government, when it rolled out its water reform proposals, for some reason decided that they would give us money, not for water upgrades, but for other projects. And the previous council decided that it would put that money towards 2 community hubs, one for Dargaville and one for Mangawhai. And for a reason which I understand was that land acquisition needed to occur for the Mangawhai one, the money was divided as $1 million for Dargaville and $3 million for Mangawhai. This was the tranche 1 better off funding package, and there was to be a subsequent tranche 2 funding package of $12 million, which was for the actual physical completion of these. That money was initially contingent on the Labor government being re-elected, as in they wouldn't give us the money unless they got re-elected. Prior to the election, they resiled from even that, and they said they wouldn't give us the tranche 2 $12 million, even if they were re-elected. As it transpired, they weren't elected, and so neither of these things happened. But what was given was an opportunity to reallocate the money, and I led a proposal in that, seeing as we only had this first $4 million, which was for initial designs, consenting and groundworks, that we ought to level that and we ought to divide the $4 million, $2 million for Dargaville and $2 million for Mangawhai. And the Labor government required us, in order to reallocate that money, to have the agreement of iwi. The proposal was put to iwi and they wouldn't agree to it. And so we stayed with 1 million to Dargaville and 3 million for Mangawhai. I then tried to find a practical use for the money, seeing as we didn't have the tranche 2 money, and tried to put it into a range of projects in the Kaiwaka and Mangawhai areas other than the hub. That had council support, but once again, central government required iwi to support the proposal to redivert the funds, and they wouldn't support it. So that's why we end up in a situation now where we still have a 1 million and a 3 million. However, it's now on the table that we reallocate that money yet again, and let's be quite frank about it. Our very strong direction from central government is that we do allocate it to water infrastructure. I can't argue with that. It's perhaps where it should have been allocated in the first place. And so we need to make a decision. Now, I haven't seen these papers any sooner than anybody else, to be quite frank with you. And as I understand it, the proposal here is to divert this money towards debt-funded projects because we want to make every effort to try and reduce our rates increase. That's what's been presented to us today. The assertion that it's all being spent in Mangawhai is quite false. So $1.5 million for Mangataroto, for example. So I think that staff have done a very robust analysis of this and put a proposal in front of us to get some projects done on the ground and minimise our debt and reduce our rates increases. I resent the behaviour that's been presented with all the talking over of staff and other elected members. Very unprofessional, not helpful for us making a good decision here. So I think we need to move on, make a decision on this and get some projects completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other elected members wish to speak? Councillor Williams.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, look, obviously this isn't ideal. We've gone out for consultation on the community hubs and people that are quite excited and needing these spaces in our communities. But I think the other side to it is obviously a direction from government. We're facing a large rates increase, and if this is going to do anything to lessen that for the ratepayers, then I think it's just something that we're just going to have to live with and do. Yeah, it's just been a continual backtrack of all this funding, and we had all this money and now we don't. And it is a shame for the community, but yeah, we need to invest in the waters, and this is what we're being asked to do. And I think it's, at this point in time, the best way to go. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other elected members wish to speak? Okay, movers right to reply, which is myself. It has been a frustrating process. This council has spent considerable resources and time being led from one scenario to the next, and both communities actually were given options of hubs and libraries, and both communities no longer will have that option through this funding. And the DIA has once again made us change our focus, so we have allocated this money, I think, wisely to projects that we can complete. I think it'll reduce our rates burden by about 1% from what I can gather. So that's another 1% off the total of our rates increase, which is a good thing. I know there's some pessimism about what might happen with what I call PGF2, which is called the Regional Infrastructure Fund. I don't think we put on our wish list a 1 to 2 or 3 preference, did we? We just put a list together.
Just list together of them.
Just a list together. So there wasn't a priority in that list. And, you know, it is promising that, for example, NRC and our local MP are coming to look at Dargaville next week. I think there's a strong case there that we will get funding through that process for further work on water. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. I can't look into a crystal ball here. But I think this is worth our voting for, and I'll finish there and I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour raise their hands and say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
There was
Motion carried.
a division called, I believe. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, councillor Payne's division.
Okay, can you run the division, please, Alana?
Councillor Howard,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Latin, Councillor Manderson,
For,
Councillor Taharoa,
Against.
Councillor Williams, Councillor Wilson Collins,
Or
Mayor Jepson.
Four.
It has passed.
Thank you. Carried. We're going to have one more item before we have a cuppa. Item 4.4, Taharoa Domain expression of interest. Can we have a mover for this, please? Councillor Williams, can I have a seconder? Councillor Panura, thank you. Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you. I've also got Jessie Ellison online just to answer any questions about the financials. I've got some questions that Councillor Collins has sent through that she'll help me with. Excuse me. So I'll take the report as read. Just a few key points is that I brought this to the February briefing off the back of the strategic review into Kaipara Campgrounds. Council endorsed the strategic review, and we went to the Taharoa Domain Governance Committee, who were, I guess, significantly impacted by those recommendations, asking them whether or not we should look for a future approach to the operations of the campground and go out for an REOI or an registered expressions of interest process. That was confirmed at the Taharoa Domain Governance Committee meeting in April, and we're now requesting the elected members consider the recommendation from that strategic review, and that we look for interest in the operations of the campground through the external market.
Any questions of Heidi?
So we've got some questions from Erin, pre-questions around the financials. I've spoken to Jessie about the financials and the minus figures. Jessie's back to me that actually probably the financials that we shared through weren't telling a very good story and weren't a lot of clarity. And so Jessie is going to share her screen and talk through the financials to cover off and give you some clarity and give you some specific answers. So Jessie, if you want to.
Yes, good morning, everybody. So I'm just trying to share my screen. I'm not sure if it is working, but where I saw the figures were confusing was in regards to the previous financial years. So in the
Jessie, can I
previous
just
financial
interrupt
year.
for two ticks, please?
Yes.
Very sorry. Would you just mind making it slightly bigger for us?
Not slightly.
Sure, I can do that. Bigger. Okay, so here we go. Is that good?
Yep. Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
cool. So in the previous financial years, the Taharoa domain costs were actually mixed in with the Kaipara Lakes expenditure. So when you look at those previous financial years that you've been provided with, it's not telling a very accurate picture of what the lakes are actually profitable by because of all the Taharoa domain expenses that are mixed in. So what I'm presenting on the screen is just the Kaipara Lakes revenue and expenses. And it just showed you that essentially the lakes are profitable. And this is the case if you went back to those previous years, which we can do if you need that information, to just pull out the lakes costs and income. This is what the story is telling you. So essentially $192,000 is coming through this year, and that's subsidising our ratepayer. So it's money that we get to spend on things that are required by council. So would anyone like to I'll just pause there in case anyone has any specific questions about what I'm sharing on my screen or anything they'd like to know.
Yes, there's one here from Councillor Erin Wilson.
Sorry, I'll ask a question. So the $192,000 profit, that doesn't automatically get reinvested back into the campground? Does it just go back into the general pot?
Into the wider domain.
Wider domain?
That's right.
But not like
it's not
the wider district, just the domain itself. Okay.
A lot of it will go to the domain, but not all of it. And that's sort of a specific question that would just need to go and track the funds and see exactly where they've been spent. But you can't rely essentially in the budget on this money. So it's not like we aren't charging the ratepayer in a way. This money wouldn't go back to the ratepayer per se in the reduction of rates, but it is there for council spending, if that makes at all sense, any sense at all.
Yeah. So the question that I had that I forgot that I remember again, if I can.
Yes.
I'll take the silence as a yes. The wider Taharoa domain costs that were included in those previous financials, if we had expressions of interest for someone else to be running the campground, council would still need
to be providing rates for all the Taharoa domain expenses. That is nothing or separate to the campgrounds. I've also listed on what you're seeing on the screen the repairs and maintenance and employee costs, because essentially those costs would still need to be met by council regardless of whether we lease them out or self-manage the campgrounds. So
can we have a copy of that?
Yes, absolutely. I'll see you.
Thank you for that. That's great. Makes a lot more sense.
Okay, Councillor Paniora.
Thank you. So what are the sorts of operating costs that are listed there, the 384,000? I see it's jumped up quite a bit in the last couple of years. What sorts of costs are those?
A lot of it is like refuse, cleaning. I need to go and look into it, and I'm scared to change my screen in case it changes what's showing on your screen, but it's an easily answerable question, so I can definitely break that down, and I can put maybe potentially when you are sent this, what is on the screen, I can break that down even further. So I'll give that information to all of you.
Yes, please. If we could maybe have a breakdown of what operating costs will still fall due to the council versus process, just to get a good.
At a very high level, that 380. At a very high level, that 384 is what I would expect the potential leasee to have to pay. So those are the operating costs that would remain with the leasee, essentially. But I can break them down and we'll give that information.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jesse. I guess just as an extension to that question on the operating costs, and if I look in Hattie's paper under financial implications, we say current cost to ratepayer is $320K per annum. But then we go down below under risks and mitigations, and we say council will be required to continue to maintain the wider reserve by general rates. The wider reserve. Responsibility for the domain could be considered in the lease license terms and conditions. Now, I might be slow and a bit of confusion, but I would be expecting, if we pitch this right, and that sort of P&L makes it attractive for someone to look at this, surely council is absolved, if somebody comes in to take over the full operation, council is absolved of all costs.
No, so through the chair, just to answer that question, the entire domain is vested to council. So the campground is being currently managed by council, but council will still be required to maintain the reserve within the wider domain.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's just the reserve. Yep.
Any further questions?
Sorry about that.
No further questions? Okay, thank you, Hayley. And down. Statement, Councillor Williams.
Through the chair. Yeah, so I'm on the Taharoa Domain Committee and we worked through to get this recommendation to come to council. I think that the time's probably right when you look at some of the issues and so where we're wanting to go with our camps. You know, I think the time is right to actually go out and see what interest there is out there in the public. So I think, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see who applies and what comes of this. So I fully support it.
Thank you. Second is statement, Councillor Paniora.
Yes, I'm on the Taharoa committee as well, and I think it's a good opportunity to have a look at some other options. I think that the campgrounds and things could do with a new management in there with a long-term focus on achieving some of the things that need to be achieved. And I'm quite in favour of Te Roroa working with council to look at whether there's a way forward to do that, given that it's actually owned by the Crown, and it's delegated authority to the council, which they would have more than the opportunity to engage directly with Crown to have that as well. You know, that's another option. So I'm in favour of this process, and we'll just see where it goes and when it returns back to the committee and the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other elected members wish to speak? So Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. It's good to hear from our Taharoa Domain committee members and their agreements with the motion. I'm a user of the lakes. I'm a camper at the lakes, and there's definitely some holes there. There's definitely not enough staff out there. And so I can understand that this has become cumbersome for council to fully staff and to run. I would like to note that I'm not convinced that the campground needs further development, and I hope that this process is not the beginning of an increased use of the campground. I think it's well known that this particular reserve, Dune Lake, is a special environment area. It's not like going to camp at the beach as such. It gets hammered during the summer months and it recuperates every winter. So I just wanted to voice my concerns about increasing use and development and the impacts that could have, and the detrimental impacts it could have if we allowed people to be there in the capacity that they are over the summer months for a longer period. I just want to express that, and but understand that council running the lakes campgrounds itself probably hasn't been in the right framework for some years. But this is a wonderful asset for our district. So just earmarking the long-term plans here. How do we protect an asset and get to enjoy it so that future generations can still enjoy it? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to make a statement? Okay, movers already reply. Councillor Williams.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour raise their hand and say aye. Motion carried, thank you. All right, what's the time? We'll have a cup of tea. 10 to back at 10 to 12? Yep, 10 minutes, thank you.
So I don't need to.
Jason's just raised the matter of maybe we'll make it an early lunch and have half an hour for lunch. Okay, so that means we will come back at 10 past 12, is it? 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5.1, I'll put a motion for this one, I'll move it. Have a second, please. Councillor Howard. Who's presenting it? Michael Day.
Michael Day is on his way, Mr. Mayor.
It's on his way.
Thanks, team. Look, this is just a noting item, noting that council has submitted on the fast track approvals bill, which was submitted to the Environment Committee on the 16th of April. The submission is attached to the council report. Just of note is that we had to use our delegated decision-making process here to follow the timeline set by central government. In this instance, the submission was signed off by Mayor Jepson, Deputy Mayor Larson and the Chief Executive. I don't have really add, it is a noting item, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, any questions? Taharoa.
I have some questions. So the delegated authority that was used to submit this, it was my understanding that we're still as a collective able to submit to the, to put our thoughts forward on the submissions. But this one was very much kept from councillors and submitted before we even had a chance to look at it. And I can't believe some of the comments that were put in here. So I guess the question is, why was the Kaipara District Council at issue with the fact that the word iwi appeared 56 times in the bill? And the wording that it was inappropriate. Can you elaborate on the rationale for that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, process that was followed, and Michael talked to that, I think, a little bit, sought feedback from elected members. And then staff created a draft submission, and then submission included responses from elected members post that. So the commentary that you were talking about there was from elected members specifically, not from staff. So the question will need to be answered by elected members.
Okay. Any questions? Further questions? Okay, Michael, thank you. We're simply noting this, it's already been submitted.
The process.
Seconder's statement, please. Councillor Howard.
No further comments.
Members wish to speak. Councillor Taharoa, followed by Councillor Aaron Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. I think that the submission, so actually I'm going to do a little bit of history here because we've been doing history this morning. We removed ourselves by majority vote from Local Government New Zealand on the understanding and the basis that the staff would have the capacity to put together submissions, which in my view, the submissions have been wanting. Secondly, putting out comments to elected members to provide their feedback is a totally different basis upon which to then make all of these bold assumptions within the fast tracking legislation, to the extent that Māori, iwi and mana whenua were not happy with the lack of assurances and guarantees within the fast tracking legislation that things such as te reti or waitangi obligations would be upheld, whether tangata whenua would even have a say in terms of things that happen in their rohe. We've had signallings from the central government that there'll be mining, deep sea drilling and things of a serious nature and consequence. The submissions were deadly against a lot of the proposals within the legislation. And so for the Kaipara District Council to put in a submission on behalf of the councillors. I do not want my name associated with this submission. I am deadly against this, and the fact that the Kaipara District Council has made comments. I'm going to read one of the sentences out. Further to this point, council considers it is inappropriate that the bill gives a much greater priority to the rights of iwi than the rights of other ratepayers and residents in our district. The word iwi appears 56 times in the bill, and the proposed 4-person panels by which projects are to be evaluated are to include one person nominated by the relevant local authority and one person nominated by the relevant iwi. This apparent equivalence between local authorities and iwi authorities seems to us totally inappropriate, and it is likely to result in the concerns of Māori residents and ratepayers being given a disproportionately greater weight than the concerns of other ratepayers in our district. That is totally untrue and unfounded. Māori rights are being trampled on right now under this three-headed taniwha that's been put into government. Now, it's the tail wagging the dog, and clearly we've got some ACT Party supporters in here. During the election campaign, ACT Party and the New Zealand First Party made much of their commitment to equal citizenship and coalition agreements which both parties signed with the National Party in the process of forming a government. There were numerous quite specific promises to eliminate the racial preferences which have crept into New Zealand law in recent years. And it just goes on, and all I want to say to this is clearly a mayor and deputy mayor submission that should have been written in their names and not trampled on the mana of the Kaipara District Council organisation to have their name and their letterhead poured all over this. And I don't agree with this. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to make, Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins, your turn.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to admit that I didn't input into this submission. I completely missed the email and wasn't aware of it until the submission had already been drafted. So that's not good enough on my part, and I wear that. I don't agree with anything in the submission, basically, and I also would not like to be associated with it. We do all have different views. I appreciate that. Perhaps there is a way that councillors' names can be put on submissions, maybe, and other names omitted to possibly be able to identify who's actually supporting rather than an overarching Kaipara District Council submission, because there will be plenty of things that are going to be supported, not supported around the table. I think, yeah, I don't have the wherewithal right now I'm trying to contain myself, to be honest, and restrain myself from saying the wrong thing. So yeah, I'm embarrassed by this submission, I guess is what I'd say, and I won't be the only person in this room or in this organisation.
Further statements? Okay. Just write a reply. Actually, you read part of it, but I'd like to read the part that collectively. So starting with the paragraph which says, Council considers that it could be challenging for the panel to include one person nominated by the relevant iwi authorities, especially if projects or proposals span across the boundaries of more than one iwi authority. Further to this point, Council considers it inappropriate that the bill gives a much greater priority to the rights of iwi than to the rights of other ratepayers and residents in our district. The word iwi appears 56 times in the bill, and the proposed 4-person panels by which projects are to be evaluated are to include one person nominated by the relevant local authority and one person nominated by the relevant iwi. This apparent equivalence between local authorities and iwi authorities seems to us totally inappropriate, and is likely to result in the concerns of Māori residents and ratepayers being given a disproportionately greater weight than the concerns of other ratepayers in the district. During the election campaign, both the ACT Party and the New Zealand First Party made much of their commitment to equal citizenship. In the coalition agreements, which both parties signed with the National Party in the process of forming a government, there are numerous quite specific promises to eliminate the racial preferences which have crept into New Zealand law in recent years. The National Party's constitution includes a specific commitment to equal citizenship, and of course it too was a party to the two coalition agreements which enabled the formation of the new government. In approving any new investment project under this fast-track approval, ministers must be mindful of the property rights of those New Zealanders who could be affected by the new project. Council's position is that this principle should apply to all ratepayers and residents, whatever their ethnicity. As drafted, the bill fails to acknowledge that principle. Obviously, we have philosophical differences in the room. I would say that the majority of my council would agree with that statement. And that's my final closing. All those in favour, raise their hand and say aye. 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 Against?
Against, can I have my vote recorded?
Division, please.
Point of clarification, there was no division called. A member asked to have their vote noted.
Okay.
It's information anyway, it's only being noted, why are we even moving a motion?
Okay. Yep. Can you note Erin Wilson-Collins' vote? Okay, next on the agenda is 5.2, externally funded projects update report, May 2024. Welcome, Helen. Thank you.
Well, afternoon, everyone. So this is the second of the quarterly reports that we're now doing, showing all the externally funded items that are in here. Since we put this together, I can confirm that construction has begun on a couple of the other projects as well. So
can I just hold you there, Helen? I didn't get a mover in a second. Can I do that? Can I get a mover, please, for this? Councillor Howard, a seconder. Okay, I'll second it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
it's all right, that's fine. So we have started some work on the Mangawhai Community Park drainage and the Rangiora car park improvements as well. So those contracted, where they say contracted in there, they are now actually in progress. So we are making some good ground there, and with the Raupo floodgate, there's not so much work happening on site at the moment. There's some site establishment, but there is prefabrication for the floodgate works going on. That is underway as well. So yes, and the Kaihu Valley Trail residual works are fully complete, and that closure report has been submitted to MB.
Thank you. Ready for questions? Any questions of Helen? Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Helen, thank you for this. I did a question on the Mangawhai community. I think it was it's from here, i.e. the drainage. So the work that's being done down the shared pathway to ultimately drain everything. Are we working in?
You're talking the shared path, sorry, shared path or Mangawhai Community Park?
What's in the community park? You know,
that part of it.
Yeah, the top. Are we doing anything to create wetland or runoff areas along? Now you're going to put drainage in, but on top of that, when you finish it, are we going to have it ready to facilitate water, or is it just going to be a covered drain?
No, it's not a covered drain. There's part of it that's covered and there's parts of it that's failed.
Okay.
So, yeah. But
it'll be planted?
No, parts within the park where they have been planted is actually creating blockages. So we're trying not to plant too much through there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Yeah, just in regards to the Kaihu Valley Trail and what we've done so far, cool. Do we have, we're getting inquiries through the LTP. Are we actively seeking further funding to complete the trail? What happens from here on in?
So the business case for stage 2 is being established by Northland Regional Trails, who Amanda Bennett, who used to work with us, is now working for.
Yeah.
They're facilitating the business case for stage 2, and then we'll seek funding options from there.
Okay. It was on the, what are we calling it?
The roof.
The RIF. It was on the RIF list?
Yes.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr Mayor, if I may, the other thing we're doing is we're talking to a local trust who, at the moment, who are keen to take over that. And we're just in the early stages.
When you say
Phase 2.
that, you mean phase 2?
Phase 2, to try and seek external funding for that. We're just early stages of conversation at this stage.
Okay. It's just good to know there's things happening.
Yeah, one of the reasons that it's good that Northland Regional Trails are considering it is that there are funding avenues that may be open to them or the trust that are not into council.
Right.
So it's good to have that external.
Just of interest, I think collectively, because we have discussed it at the mural forum, collectively, we want to connect all these trails because it's huge economic activity.
Yes.
So yeah, we're pretty keen. That could happen.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Move a statement, councillor Howard.
No further comments really. I think it's, good that there is progress being made and as detailed. I would comment on the Kaihu Valley Trail. I think that it's good to have that information, and it became loud and clear at the LTP hearings that tourism and through the trails and the lights is an absolutely critical factor for the whole district, but particularly over here when it's all linked. And I'm delighted to hear that there's some work being happening on that front.
Okay, I'm not going to expand on that. I'm in agreement. Any other elected members wish to speak? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Just to reiterate, and I know you say that, everyone's keen to get the trail finished, but yeah, I feel like I'm the only one that benefits from it at the moment because I have a nice little loop track from my house into town. But for people that are serious about biking, it really is a blip as far as a bike trail goes. So it would be really, really want to make sure that we can get some progress happening and keep the momentum. I just don't want it to lose traction. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
I'm not sure whether I'm.
You can have the right of reply.
Can I?
Right of reply, but in the meantime, is it the elected members wish to speak? Okay, we will go to you for the right of reply.
Thank you. All I'd like to add to that, and I'm specifically on the Kaihu Trail. Recall that at the LTPs it was highlighted at the terrible level of signage. So I would love to have reported that we take some fast action to get that tidied up. It doesn't have to cost a lot. It may well be being done, but that was vociferous and strong in the comments, and I think that there's no point of having a rail trail or a trail like that if it's not functioning, because nobody knows where to go.
Thank you. Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour, raise their hand, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carried. Okay, 5.3, quarter performance measures. Can I have a mover for that, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Howard, second it, please. Okay, I'll second it. All right, reporting staff member.
I think it's me, Mr Mayor.
Is CE Jason Maris.
Happy days. So, look, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I take it you've all read it. There's a high-level summary on page 12 that covers it off. Of the 63 measures reported this quarter, 48 have been achieved, so that equates to 76%. There are 5 measures recorded in amber and 10 measures recorded in red. Of the red measures, I just thought I'd draw your attention to the open spaces and facilities one that's on page 255 of the agenda 24 of the report. Just want to point out it's red, however, it's red for the year. You guys, council has been very focused on parks maintenance and getting that right. what I want to point out here is we have achieved it this quarter, but not year to date. So we've been putting additional focus in that area and the contract is responding. And what you're seeing is a bit of a trend here where it is improving, which is good to see. Just want to put it out to you. And also on the regulatory management page, so that's pages 263 to 266 on the agenda, pages 32 to 35 of the report. There's some commentary about the building control customers. So there is some feedback from those customers as well. I just want to remind you that we did a more target customers across the whole board of that department. Lots were different. However, we will be taking into account as well and improving our service in that space as well. And the only other thing I'd like to mention when you're talking about the amber measures, just at the really high level, pointing out some commentary from our community, and that's around the library. So this is kind of normal. There's dissatisfaction with the small library in that space, particularly in Dargaville. That's on page 256 of the agenda, page 25 of the report. And open spaces maintenance on page 5 of the agenda is linked to the results that I talked to you about before and read, but we are making improvement in that area. And the only other point I'd like to point to you to is the waste management on page 253 of the agenda, and that is the continued dissatisfaction with the use of rubbish bags. You need to see that, obviously, and that's the feedback coming through from the community. And I'll leave it there. Are there any questions?
Questions, Councillor Watson-Gorrie?
Thank you. No. Okay. These measurements are created out of the LTP.
Correct.
Okay.
So be with me, I'll expand on that answer.
Could you?
So some of them are council driven, and we've gone through the measures already for this next LTP with you.
Right.
Already.
Yeah.
And some of them are statutory.
Right, okay.
We've reported those two.
I don't recall, maybe I missed the memo, I don't recall if we've gone over the, how quickly we need to respond to noise.
Yes, we have.
Dog attacks, and we've increased those?
Yes, my understanding is check with you. Yeah.
Now that you say that.
So from half an hour to 1 hour.
Because
1 hour still.
it's hard,
Still.
and it was difficult with a half an hour, it's impossible.
Just through you, Chair, we have adjusted our rosters now, so instead of having one officer on across the district, we will have
Right.
two. So
Okay.
we're better able to respond.
Okay. I don't like setting ourselves up to fail. And I feel like these measurements that we have in this current would be very difficult. So I appreciate the work, just want to check on all of that. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Okay, we move to,
Sorry, just one.
I'm sorry, Councillor Taharoa.
Just double checking, so the 30 June, which is the end of the financial year, we will have the annual report for item 8.1, is that the?
So through USB, yeah, so how this works is it's a combination of activity through the year, and then once we adopt the LTP.
Final, but is that due at the next quarterly report?
And then we formalise it all in the annual report. So we'll do that work after you adopt the LTP at the end of July. And the next couple of months is us getting with our auditors and doing the annual report, and that will be reported back to council for your adoption as part of that process.
That would be due at 8.1 would be due, in my mind, 30 June to coincide with the financial year.
Yeah, correct.
But then we're not doing the other work until a few months later.
That's right. So you will recall, councillor, that you've approved the LTP to be adopted 1 year later than it, so 1 year later, 1 month later than it normally does. It's normally 30 June, but because of timing and the changes with Three Waters, the council agreed to adopt it at the end of July. So we're working hard to meet that. Now, normally in a normal financial year, we'd do the annual plan by 30 June. Or the LTP by 30 June, and then start on the annual report. We have 3 months to do the annual report normally, so that would be done by the year of that year. we've got a bit of extra time to do that as well. So as soon as we adopt, in fact, the project's already kicked off with the annual report. It's just that we have to use the same team to do it. So it's sort of linear, trying to work through that workload.
One other question, so for 8.2 and 3, I'm just wondering when we're able to review, or have we missed the vote on looking at performance standards being raised? Because 52 and 56 is pretty low and we should be aiming for much higher.
I can't recall what you've agreed already on that, but we've had that conversation about the measures as part of our LTP already, and you've reviewed the measures and already put the standards in.
Okay, any other elected members wish to add? Okay, thank you, Jason. Move a statement, Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good to get these reports and keep up, and it's good to hear that, you know, management are pretty much on top of any that are issues, and of course, some of them we do have to wait for the end of year. I do note 9.1 and the request for service responses has been very satisfied for control. Look through the whole schedule. I just wonder whether that may well be work being done, but it stands out as being a pretty low achievement. So, you know, maybe that's an area of some action, but overall, thank you for the report.
Okay, second the statement. I have nothing to add. Thank you, Mike. Any other elected members wish to speak? No. Okay, movers right reply, Councillor Howard.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Put to the vote. All those in favour, raise their hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carried. Item on the agenda is 5.4. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Howard. I'll see some lazy hands today. Okay, so who's presenting this?
Mr. Mayor, we're just going to hand you over to Jessie Ellison, who's talking about the financials, and then she will then hand over to Sue and Annan, who will come up to talk through Councillor Howard's questions. So Jessie, over to you, please.
Thank you, everybody. So the story for the financial report as at April 24 is along the same lines as last month, with subsidy revenue and repairs and maintenance expenses as our biggest variances. So our subsidies and grants revenue is currently 3.5 million behind budget, though we are expecting at least 3.3 million in roading subsidy income. That's for the State Highway 1 detour works, and the roading team are working on getting that bill to NZTA. Our repairs and maintenance expenses are showing well over budget because of the emergency works repairs and the spend State Highway 1 detours previously mentioned. So the emergency works are largely operational, but the budget for those costs was incorrectly provided as capital, which we have discussed. So there is $9.68 million remaining in that capital budget that covers part of this R&M deficit. I did have one question from Councillor Mike Howard to answer, and so Mike was referencing the budgeted debt figure that says $76 million is expected by the end of the year. And his question was asking that given the level of uncompleted works, whether this is accurate. And the answer is it is not accurate, but we can't change the budgeted figures. Once they're published, we have to report against them. So
technical issue.
It's debt fund. Sorry, I couldn't quite hear that, Mr. Mayor. Were you asking a question?
You just faded out for a second. I was just saying we had a technical problem, and then you came back in, so no problem.
Okay, so yes, we won't be drawing down any debt this financial year. And that's because some of those debt funded projects are not going to be completed and are being carried forward to next year. So unfortunately, we just have to report against the budgeted figures. So does anyone have any questions before I hand over to our GM Arnon to talk to you specifically about CapEx?
No questions. That's all, Howard.
Thanks, Jesse, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify that point of Rose, I imagine that when we get to our year end, June 30, that there will be an adjustment made to the actual debt that we have at the time. Will be, as you've said, different than the 76 million, simply because of the projects that aren't done. So, I mean, as of year end, the debt figure will be, I imagine, will be recorded as to what it is, what it actually is.
That's right. What it actually is right now is 54 million, but really 10 of that million is set aside in our cash reserves, and that was a financing treasury issue. So really the correct debt figure is 44 million. We will be staying at 44 million, which we've been at for a long time.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay.
None up.
Through the chair, I think there was only one relating to resource consents, was about the consistency of the time taken to do resource consents, even though there are less consents. And the answer to that is that we're not using consultants. So it takes about at least 16 days to do a consent, sometimes more, at least if it's a minor consent. But what's happening is that we're not using external consultants as much, only really for the commercial consents.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to the capital program and response to Councillor Howard's question, I think it would be easier if I presented it in the way of a waterfall. I apologise for the opportunity to send it out for the meeting. But I'd like to talk through that today. So you should all have a copy. If we just come back to the box at the top, but I'll just talk to the waterfall graph, which largely talks to the box. So just starting from the left, our overall capital program, which includes the carryovers of $77.9 million. I just wanted to present where we're going to be at year end. And the blocks that attribute to various activities. So starting with the first block of $16.6 million, that's made up of, Jesse talked about, we're transferring approximately $9 to $10 million out from CapEx to OpEx. So we're taking that value out. And you'll also recall, Mr. Mayor, we had this Transport Choices Fund of $8 million, which obviously has not been approved for the work that was intended to. We are using $1 million of that for the design, but also some works that we're doing in Dargaville, footpath into safety crossing. So again, the $7 million remaining comes out. You'll see a sum there of $7.7 million. That's a combination, I'll talk to that on the other page, of projects that are going to be deferred with quite some savings, which leaves us a balance of $55 million if you take the 16 and the 17 off that. Then we come down to 17.9 million. That's our year-to-date expenditure. That's our year-to-date expenditure. We're forecasting carryovers in the order of 23 million. So the net effect of all the deductions gets us down to $12 million remaining to be spent over the 2 months that May. So May, June. So that's how the waterfall is working out. Now, there's some issues there with regards to weather, and we can't sort of predict that. We've booked that in to a large extent on the 7.7 million. So if you turn over the page, the eye diagram there, and it makes up where the savings or the deferrals are. A large portion of that, $4.4 million thereabouts, relates to roading works. So we are seeing potential underspend of $1 million in unsealed works. Now, that's a combination of weather, where we are today, but also resources in the market. I'll come back and talk to that in a minute, Mr. Mayor. Similarly with bridges, we're seeing it's not so much a savings, but we don't have the resources to do bridge repairs to the extent that we would have liked them to have been done. And bridges and structures, we've got a number of bridges that are under construction at the moment. We anticipate those completing, but we are factoring in a safety, some factor of safety in the event that the weather does turn and the crew are not able to complete those works. The other is called low risk, low value, which is the safety and other improvements of 1.7. Now, that's a combination of some capital programs that haven't started because of resourcing. We've gone to market and we haven't received any, so we're in the process of negotiating. One project has started, but it won't get completed. And there's a whole lot of safety related around Road to Zero initiatives that the council gave direction future meetings ago around it's all work Road to Zero. So I just want to come back to the unsealed and bridges. We are looking aggressively at that as we speak to see if we can utilise our local subcontractors to do that work. So in the event that we are able to secure those resources meeting NZTA requirements, we could be pulling back in the order. And similarly with bridge repairs, although that is specialist work, but if there's activities that we can do with our resources that our subcontracting resources that we're able to utilise, then we'll certainly be looking to utilise that money as well. But at the moment, as it stands, we are looking at forecasts to complete about capital around $3 million if we take the year to date plus what is remaining. Now, the confidence level in what is remaining, we've got 4.5 in infrastructure projects, and all of those projects are in flight. The risk is weather, and then the remaining 7.5 is roading. Again, those projects are in flight. They're quite cash heavy in terms of they burn a lot of cash. So from a delivery point of view, not at risk, but from a weather point of view, they are at risk. So I thought this would be a good way to sort of present our picture. This is a little bit better than what obviously the exceptions report talks about, but I thought we'd break it down into a lot more detail and give a bit more granularity in terms of where the program sits and where each activity has taken up the overall capital envelope. So happy to take questions.
Thank you, Alan. That's a good presentation. Who'd like to ask any questions? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Yep, feeling like the dumbest person in the room again. Can you explain to me what the difference between carry forwards and deferrals is?
Carry forward, we've identified a whole lot of programs that have started in a largely basically either fully council funded or external funded, and we've got the ability to carry those projects over multi-year. So when it comes to external funding, we've got up until 2025 to spend the money, and therefore we can carry those over, and we've done so.
Right.
In terms of so were you talking about deferred? Sorry.
Deferral, yeah, like, so we've taken out savings and deferred, like.
7.7, yeah.
But deferrals, like, how is that different to a carry?
Yeah, so if you go over the pie chart,
Yeah.
The deferrals are a combination of either savings that we've done the capital work and we've saved money, and we've done a pump station where we've saved a couple of $100,000, so that's all part of the savings. Some of the deferral is we're moving that out into future LTPs.
Yeah, so why is that different to a carry forward?
The dollars amounts are so small that we're grouping them up and making them into a bigger program of works. So we've got allocations of like 100,000. Well, we're actually going to bundle it up and put it into the renewals program of $500,000. So make it a bigger parcel of work. It's a combination of making sure we can do it and we don't get a lot done for the small allocations that have been previously allocated.
Okay.
In terms of the roading, we lose the subsidy comes to an end on 30 June. Therefore, we don't carry over those projects apart from two where we can then carry over the council and the subsidy as well, which is the shared part we're carrying over. And another project, when it comes to reseals, the 30 June deadline means that you can't carry over, so you just have to try to utilise the resources we have to then they'll just be deferred, stopped. Not, we'll just pick it up again in the new tranche of funding that we get in the next 3 years.
And reapply for the funding again.
We're applying for funding now for the next 3 years. And so we'll just have to utilise those funds. And that's my desire, is that, we try not to leave money on the table. So if we can utilise other resources to get the same work done, that's the plan that we've got.
Okay, and then my other question was in regards to the table at the very top of this page that has all the figures on it. See if I can read or not. Plan spend May to June. So that very last column telling us what we're planning on spending during May and June. Yeah. And then the second, or the third column technically, because you've got your titles and then you've got total financial year 2024 budget, then you've got total April 2024 year to date spend. Yeah. So if we just look at roading and footpaths, year to date, we've spent 9.8 million. Is that what that's telling me?
Yep.
And in May and June, we're planning on spending 9 million. So is it realistic that we're going to get a year's worth of work done in 2 months?
So not so much years worth of work. The team have been focusing on getting a whole lot of work procured. They've also been focusing on cyclone as well. So there's nothing in telling me at the moment that they're not going to spend that amount of money. The contract's been awarded. A number of contracts have come to council. Shared path has been awarded. So there's nothing indicating that, apart from weather, that we're not going to spend.
Help me understand how you've got 9.8 million year to date, and then we can do $9 million worth of work in 2 months.
If you follow the table, so the total roading spend and footpaths is 45.9 million.
Yeah.
Spend 9.8.
Yeah.
So that leaves 36 million. We're taking out 16.6 million, which I talked about being transferred from CapEx to OpEx, plus the targetable. Sorry?
I mean the physical works. Like on the paper, that looks extraordinary. That it took us all year.
Sure. Okay, so look.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
So we've got shared path still going.
Yeah.
We've got a number of bridges that are being repaired right now.
Right.
We've got,
Yeah,
and Omana, and we've got road resealing, we've got unsealed road metalling. There's a whole lot of activities happening as we speak.
Okay.
What we're saying is that there's a potential for $1 million of that unsealed road works at risk.
Yeah.
Because of just resources within the current maintenance contractor. And we're looking to bring in additional resources to make sure that, we don't lose those funds.
Right.
Because they're external funds that we want to use.
Yeah. I just like to understand what's in front of me, so I appreciate your patience.
So Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Anand. One question, two parts. Do you have any fears of any project specifically that we may end up losing subsidy on? And the second part is, when do we know what the new NZTA subsidy will be? And do you have any sense of whether we will retain the 62%?
Okay, first question, there's two projects in there that we will lose subsidy. And we won't lose our part of it, obviously, because we've collected it. And then we're just going to have to utilise next year's available funding to reallocate and reprioritise those projects within. And the two that have missed out will probably be top because they obviously need to be done. And then it just means that the cut line goes to in year 3.
Were they expensive projects?
There's one that's Glen Scully, which is 300,000, and the other one was Arapavi, which we didn't get any tenders and we negotiated.
Okay.
And that's in the order of 500 to less than 800,000. And then obviously we've got the unsealed metalling here, that on the pie chart, where, you know, if we don't spend it, we will lose it. We are doing everything we can and utilising some subcontractors to see if we can get that utilised as well. The at risk is really just the weather.
Playing ball today.
But look, the you know, some of it is weather dependent, some of it is, you know, they can continue through just some normal weather events. So.
And the NZTA subsidy factor?
The 62% is something that we're in discussions with, and I may like to pick that up in the PECS conversation as well. There is some changes to how storm-related funding has been repurposed with NZTA. And Kelvin next week will provide a briefing on that. So there's some new guidance out from NZTA around how much they will. In the past, it used to be FAR plus 20. It's now come down to FAR plus 10, but there's a whole lot of criteria as well. So it will provide. We'll give you a presentation on that at next week's briefing.
Okay, thanks. And if I may, just an extension question, Mr. Mayor. As we get, say, to the last week of the year, and we've started a project, and let's just use the example of weather again, and it doesn't get completed until the first week of July, are we able to accrue?
We will carry it.
Or you'll carry it over, you can't accrue it back into this?
We'll accrue the expenditure that's been incurred.
Yep.
And we'll carry over. So the $23 million carryover is also likely to increase.
Yeah.
Weather dependent. So whatever we don't finish, and we can legitimately carry it. We can legitimately accrue, i.e. works completed on site but not billed yet, we will accrue.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Statement, Councillor Howard.
Look, nothing really to add. I think that very good detailed summary of all those matters, and for me, satisfied the questions I had. Thank you. All.
Okay, second statement. I would agree with that. Any other elected members wish to speak? Okay, movers right reply, Councillor Howard.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Let's go to the vote. All those in favour raise their hand and say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. The next item on our agenda is item 5.5, resolutions registered, and that's to be presented by Alana.
Through the chair, just the updates on the resolutions that have been passed by council, and the executive team are here to answer your questions.
Well, can I, sorry, Councillor Panera, I'll just get a mover for that first and a second, and then we'll go to your question. Have a mover?
Mover.
You'd like to move it? Okay, Councillor Williams second. Okay, go to your question. Thank you.
Laura, you just said that these are based on the decisions that have been made by council, the updates. But
the updates are on the decisions made by council.
okay, because I've just drawn your attention to item 4.1 on page 5 of the report regarding the waste to energy, notice of motion to establish the waste to energy plant. So this update was news to me because I was expecting a preliminary viability report to be presented back in a workshop, and now the update is that any waste to energy plant will be a private sector project, not a council project. And it is not envisaged that staff will now report back on the viability for this reason. So a myriad of different questions around that that deviation from the notice of motion. I believe we would have to come back and formally discuss that in a notice of motion, because it was very clearly set out in that what was to happen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's for me to answer. So the notice of motion was done obviously over a year ago now, and it did request a report, but it became very clear very quickly that this isn't a council project to sit there and resource and report on viability. It's a private sector application or project if there is to be one in the future. So it's not really for council to do that. So I've been updating the the resolutions register as we've gone through, and I've suggested that's the way forward here.
So can we bring that back properly to council to close that chapter off officially? Because that's really important, especially given the swirlings in the community, that we close it off officially at this table. That would be really helpful.
Happy to take direction from the council. What I'm trying to avoid is spending resource.
I get that, but there's also other concerns around reputational concerns and things like that, that we have to officially close it off, especially for me. So speaking for myself personally, I have no say. I know as much as what goes in the newspapers about this, yet it's an open-ended motion on the table. So I would request respectively that we close it off formally at this table. And
Mr. Mayor, I'll take direction from council, but happy to bring in a very short report to close that.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
Thank you, councillor Larson.
Oh, thank you, Rishby. I was going to say, thank you for the oral report that just closed the matter off. We'd like to put that in writing. Well, that would perhaps satisfy councillor Banning Order as well.
No, a lot of our needs to be a motion, not just a letter.
No motion. The report comes back. It's coming from staff.
Well, we need to close the motion off too.
I'll get you to. Councillor Maris, can you explain our way through this?
Councillor.
Sorry, see you, Maris. It's been a long day.
Mr. Mayor, so look, I'm very happy to bring like a half-page report to explain why we're not going to report back and get you guys to note that or agree to that. That's fine. There will be no detail about a waste energy plant in that report. It'll just be closing the loop. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so where are we at now with that? Any further questions? Okay, movers, just for Taharoa.
Yes, just, no, I'm happy with that. That was the only thing that was standing out to me. I'm excited to be attending the Potal Wharf opening next Friday. It's been a long time coming, and I think that the community is really looking forward to that development as well. And everything else seems to be tracking along well. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Any other elected members wish to speak? No. Movers right to reply, councillor Taharoa. Okay, let's go to the vote. All those in favour raise their hand and say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion. I'll move into PECs. Can I have a second? Councillor Howard, all those in favour say aye. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, just noting the council that we've got a couple of externals included in that recommendation who are needed for the next item. So that's what you've agreed to just now.
So through the chair, also they're needed for the road and maintenance contract approval also.
you have people that have to attend this PEX meeting. You've got Frank Aldridge, Bear King, right? Is that right? And others.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Sort it out.
All right. So then we have the PEX minutes. Confirm the PEX minutes.
Sorry, one minute, please. Sorry, we need to.
1 moment, please, caller.
Oh, you're having to disengage us there.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.